All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking about real music and a real music legend and doing it in real time for real people just like you and just like me. So, John Mayall is about to wrap up a career which has spanned well over 60 years. He's been active in music since 1956. He is 88 years old. His last performance in San Juan Capistrano, California, allegedly will be his last live performance at the young age of 88 years old. John Mayall has put out, I believe, something in the order of 41 studio albums. And there are a bunch of live albums and collaborations. And it's exhausting trying to document all of this man's work. He's been extremely busy throughout his lifetime creating music and singing and playing keyboards, guitar, and really an amazing influence on so many other people. And then you've got some real great rock and roll Hall of Fame people that kind of went through the John Mayall Music Foundation and became very successful. Obviously, Eric Clapton, Mick Taylor, Peter Green. I mean, these are all big league household names. And then in the 80s, for you real blues diehards, you also had Coco Montoya and the amazing Walter Trout, who is just a phenomenal artist. Many people in the States and around the world don't really know that much about. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a little bit, shall we say, missing in action on this one. This one is a glaring error. How many other artists that this particular gentleman has influenced over the years, and he's managed to stay alive until the age of 88. And I'm not sure he's even been nominated to the Hall of Fame. Now, if your argument is he's a blues guy, okay, sure, blues and rock, a lot of his music leans in many different directions. At the core of it, I believe, is the blues, but many other tangents. And in the early days of rock and roll, as we all used to know, rock was a blues-oriented genre in general. If you weren't playing a couple of blues licks, you probably weren't doing justice to the format. Now, again, there are variations on the rock format. I'm not saying that it has to be blues-based in order for it to be, acceptable, but quite honestly, this is sort of the roots of everything. Now, of course, I have my own kind of far out conspiracy theories as to why John Mayall isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'm not going to talk about it because a lot of people just get sick and tired of me talking about my opinions and my theories on certain things when a lot of people just won't join me in the club crazy car. They're just they're gonna say, look, is he worthy of the Hall of Fame or not? And I would say he's very worthy with the amount of material that he's recorded, his brilliant musicianship, including great songwriting over the years, and also just helping a lot of other artists become household names, at least in certain quarters of the music world. Currently, he's working with a guitar player from Austin, Texas, Carolyn Wonderland, who is phenomenal. And this is his current guitar player, also putting a woman with talent on the map in a big way. And from her catalog, from what I know of it, she really deserves it. I was stumbling around one day inside of a thrift store and I found this gem of a record with even the sleeve intact, and the record looked almost like it hadn't ever been played. And I really was blown away. I, of course, went to listen to the album on Spotify as well, but I do have a turntable in my studio here. And again, John Mayall, not for everybody, not musically for everybody, but certainly just a legend, just a complete up and down legend. And there's just no excuse for this guy not being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, with the 41 albums and the influence and helping the careers of other great musicians and being a man of really good cheer and optimism throughout his lifetime, I just don't understand, you know, what the problem is getting into the Hall of Fame. Look at it this way. Here's a band last year that got into the Hall of Fame, and I like them. All right, totally off topic. The Go-Go's, right? They had 4 albums, 3 of which were really the most important when it came to putting the Go-Go's into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One of the arguments I often make is, do they have a catalog? Is it a worthy catalog? And do they have a little bit of longevity? Did they say go 10 years? Now, of course, there are exceptions to that. Guys that die in plane crashes like Jim Croce, there should be special consideration for people like that. But the Go-Go's broke up. They got back together again, created an album, I believe in 2001, and boom, they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame needs to put more women into the hall. So they could put more women in, and at the same time, they could respect a guy like this here who's been around and active since 1956 and is about to exit the music world for the last time. So those are my thoughts on John Mayall. I am not an expert on John Mayall. I'm not an expert on the Blues Breakers. Everybody pretty much knows the name John Mayall. I mean, they may know the name John Mayer more than they know the name John Mayall these days. And that's kind of sad, because if this was going to happen, it should have happened like 20 or 30 years ago when this guy was first eligible to get in there. And this is a bit of an off the beaten track kind of pick, even though, again, his influence is absolutely pervasive throughout the industry over the years. And it's a bit weird and just tragic, again, that the Hall of Fame has missed out. Now, he is in the Blues Hall of Fame. He is in the Blues Music Hall of Fame, was inducted in 2016. And again, if we're going to follow like the Dolly Parton suggestion, maybe have different categories within the umbrella of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I just see this as closer to straight up rock and roll than so much of what gets nominated and then, you know, put in there. And there are exceptions to that rule. I applaud when applause is, worthy. When it's worthy of applause, I will clap and cheer. But when they completely miss the mark and miss the point, I'm thinking to myself, you're wasting an opportunity. Here's a guy at the very sunset of his career at a very ripe old age. And by the way, experiencing some health problems from what I know, but he's withstood the test of time. And he's still here and still performing at least one more show before he just goes off into the sunset. So again, if you don't know much about John Mayall, I get it. This is for real old folks at this point, older than me, which I know that says something about me, but it also says something about that people just skipped over this for some reason for so long. And yes, does he deserve a little bit of love on the radio? Yeah, I know he gets it over in the UK. Here in the States, it just didn't ever catch on, which is tragic. Maybe in the Blues Breakers for a little while, but it just never, coalesced. And the record labels, they kept putting out material, but that was the extent of what they did for John Mayall. So In any event, that's my video on a true rock and roll and blues legend, John Mayall. 88 years old. May he live another 20 years to maybe see the day where he gets put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because he definitely deserves it. I'm not sure the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame deserves him, though, at this point. So that's my take on that.